Hello everyone! In today's episode, the third one in our Sicily series, we are continuing our walk through the streets of Catania. Our first stop on today's trip is the Amphitheater of Catania, which is located in the historical center of the city. The amphitheater is the largest in Sicily, and it's part of a group of large arenas, which includes the Colosseum, the Capua Amphitheater, and the Verona Arena. It is assumed that the amphitheater was built during the Roman imperial period, probably in the 2nd century AD, on the northern edge of the ancient city, at the base of the Monte Vergine hill. The exact date of the construction is uncertain, but the architectural style suggests roughly the time period between the emperors Hadrian and Antonius Pius. It seems that the amphitheater was extended in the 3rd century AD, which has tripled the size of the structure. Only a small section of the structure is now visible, about 10% below the street level, north of Piazza Stesicoro. Next stop is Chiesa San Biagio. The church was built in the 18th century after the terrible earthquake of 1693, on the place where it is traditionally said that Saint Agata was burned alive and martyred. After being imprisoned for not wanting to renounce her faith, she was first subjected to torture, her breasts were cut off, and then she was burned. Inside the church, in the transept, on the right side, we find the chapel of Saint Agata. Above the altar covered in polychrome marble, the remains of the furnace in which the saint was martyred are still preserved today, protected by glass. And behind it is a fresco by Giuseppe Barone from 1938 that depicts the last moments in the life of the saint. In front of the altar of Saint Agata we find the left transept, and in it the chapel of the Most Holy Crucifix. On the main altar we see a statue of the Madonna. The main altar is ingeniously enriched by vaults and columns, and statues of Saint John the Evangelist and Saint Mary Magdalene. The organ in the church is the result of a faithful reconstruction of an original instrument of a Sicilian school from the first half of the 18th century, made by the Ruffati brothers in 1978. The instrument has 12 registries on a single manual and pedal. Behind the church we have just visited is a third place of worship that venerates Saint Agata. We could not go inside as we got here a bit late, around lunchtime, and the church was closed. But if you come to Catania and find it open, we suggest you visit it. Saint Agata al Carcere, in translation Saint Agata in prison, sometimes called Santo Carcere or Carcere Church. This Roman Catholic church is where Saint Agata was imprisoned. The place where the saint was imprisoned seems to resemble a crypt and should be somewhere under the church and can be visited. In this church there is a silver chest containing her relics and a lava slab with footprints believed to be her footprints. From the church of Saint Agata al Carcere, we're going to the main park of Catania, which is dedicated to Vincenzo Bellini, whose statue welcomes you at the entrance from Via Etna. Giardino Bellini, or Villa Bellini, is one of the oldest public gardens and one of the 4 main parks of Catania. The oldest part of the garden dates back to the 18th century and belonged to the Prince Ignazio Paterno Castello di Biscari, who had designed it according to the fashion of the time, with hedges cut to form labyrinths, with paths decorated with statues and numerous fountains of various shapes. In 1858, Marquis Antonio Paterno del Toscano, head of the city's administration, proposed that the private garden be transformed into a public park. But the transition of the garden and adapting it for public use encountered numerous difficulties, not least the economic ones, because in order to make it suitable for public use, related problems such as the acquisition of additional private gardens had to be resolved. The Bourbon government authorized the financing of the works, and the architect Ignazio Landolina was given the task of directing its execution, who began the transformation of the private gardens into a public garden, and the works lasted until 1875. We are leaving the park through the exit that leads to Piazza Roma, in Catania, where we can see the equestrian statue of Umberto I of Savoy, King of Italy between 1878 and 1900, who was a controversial figure in Italy's history. We pass by the ruins of the church of Sant'Euplio. The church, which bore the name of a saint originally from Catania, withstood the great earthquake of Val di Noto in 1693, but was destroyed during the bombings in the Second World War. From the church of Sant'Euplio, which was built in 1548 on the area previously occupied by an earlier Christian temple, now only 2 walls remain, and in front of the presbytery 12 reliefs with the images of the apostles, made in 1887, were hung. These were originally intended for the monumental cemetery of Catania, and they were permanently exhibited here in 1978, on the western wall of the former church. And under the ruins of the church there is a crypt, which was originally a Roman tomb from the imperial period. We're ending today's walk through the streets of Catania in front of the Maria Santissima dell'Elemosina church, which was built on the site of an ancient temple dedicated to Proserpina or Persephone. This church has also held the title of Royal Church, and has been at the center of numerous disputes throughout its long history. If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and share this video with others. And we will see you again in 2 weeks when we will take our last walk through the streets of Catania before going on a short trip to the Etna volcano.